Welcome to the first episode of IUP TV's Generation Gap. I'm Tyler Washington. I'll be your host for today's episode. Today's topic is four-year graduation rate in colleges and how we have slowly increased to students graduating in more than 4, 5, 6 years. Today I have a group of panel members and I would like them to introduce themselves, say your name, and kind of have an educated guess on what IUP's graduation rate is for four-year degrees.
My name is Maddie. I am a dual major in nutrition and sociology. I'm starting my 5th year at IUP, and I would say maybe 60%.
My name is Dr. Luis Almeida. I'm a department's assistant chair in communications media, and I think it'll be around 50%, 4 years.
I'm Michelle Freiling. I'm the Executive Director of Communications and Media Relations at IUP. And I have to tell you, I cheated a little bit before the program, so I do know the numbers, so I'm not going to guess.
I'm Eduardo Rodriguez. This is my 4th year in IUP, and I recently transferred into the comm media. And I would have to say 55%.
All right, so would you like to share with us what the number actually
Absolutely. It's very interesting. The national graduation rate for public four-year universities is 56%, and IUP is really about right there at that 54 to 56%. Now, four-year graduation rates, we are really also on target with what peers would be. The national average is about 29%, and IUP's average is 30%. And sometimes that can feel a little bit shocking that people are thinking that folks are that's a low number, but it's very comparable to national averages.
All right, so are the rest of you surprised that it's actually a little lower than that 50% mark?
Not really. I mean, if we look at historically, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we look back again at state appropriations, talking about public
Absolutely,
institutions,
absolutely.
you know, when I went to school, we used to have about 75 cents per every dollar to be invested in higher education. Where right now, it is my understanding, maybe you're better to know this than I am, Michelle, but I think it's about 27 cents per dollar. So that has to have an impact, because then now the kids have to go out and potentially get a first job, maybe a second job, which can have an impact on how folks can actually balance balance going to class and having to work part-time, and that can result in maybe lower grades and cognitive overload and things like that. I think it can be like a factor.
So financial situation can be a huge factor. Eduardo and Maddie, do you agree?
Definitely. I know most, if not all, the friends that I have in college have some sort of job that either compensates for some of their education or for personal expenses, but just there's some means of income that they all have pretty much.
All right, and how do you think that the finance kind of affects how quickly a student graduates at college?
Well, I feel like I completely agree, first of all. Even from my personal perspective, I come from a Hispanic background. So I have to worry about all the finances because I can't depend on my parents. Like, I can't depend on them to fill out my FAFSA or anything like that. I have to do that. So I completely agree, like the stress level that includes on top of my classes and being able to buy my books and then stuff like that, because I have to pay for all that. Especially now that my younger sister is starting college. Now my parents can't really help both of us financially, so I'm financially independent right now and have to work for just my classes and my books.
Okay. That's what we're finding. Our students are really challenged. It's not that they don't want to take a certain number of credits, it's just that they can't. I mean, they really do have to face some financial pressures. And Eduardo, that was an interesting point you brought up, like psychologically too. When you're stressed, it makes things more challenging. I mean, you see it in the classroom, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So it really is. Our students are working hard. We know they're working hard. But if you add a second major or a minor, if you transfer out to a different department, it's really challenging to meet that 4 years. It's just almost, in some cases, impossible. Yeah. Just because also of the structure of the courses. If you are you can't take 201 before you take 102. You just can't do it. So, but I do think financially, and aid is getting harder and harder for students to come by too. You know, you have loans, interest rates are high, and it really is a worrisome thing. You know, when you have economic problems too in the families, you know, when you have families that are going like, I'm so sorry, I can't help you, and a student was depending on that, because you have to think tuition is not your only thing, especially if you're living on campus. You have room and board and books, and you have to live, you have to eat.
Yeah, and Michelle makes a good point in talking about stress, and the stress that actually generates the financial stress that our kids are under is just incredible. And that is an issue that we have as a state here in the Commonwealth. We may need to have I guess, a larger discussion on how we're going to fund public education so that the kids can actually come here to the university, get a quality education, yet not have to work 2 jobs to be able to pay for tuition, for books, right?
Well, because it's also very important, just as we're doing here, you need to have the out-of-classroom experiences that take away from your opportunity to get a job. I mean, the students don't just go to class from 8 to 10. They need to be working in the television studio or the radio studio or doing an internship or working in a work-study job that enhances their major experience. So to do that and maintain that credit load, it's tough. And then you have a mother who loses a job or gets downsized. What do you do?
So we're looking at students who are going to class full-time, have 1 and even 2
Absolutely.
jobs, and then on top of that, try to balance getting into extracurricular activities, stuff like to enhance your knowledge on your particular field, as well as if you're into sports, if you decide to join Greek life, and there's many other opportunities that the college does provide, but it does add that stress. And you guys think of any other stresses that sometimes build onto?
I mean,
college
even
student?
in the summer, like for ComMedia, you have to have an internship, a summer internship to do, and a lot of times it's really hard to get a paid internship. So I have to think like job, or I have to do my internship if I want to graduate.
Right.
And then also it depends, like I also need to raise money for the next coming year. So that's pretty challenging as well and stressful, because you have to start looking for jobs like spring break for back home and
And
stuff.
I'm sure it's not a job that you can get in the summertime that's going to make you $50,000 a year.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you have to be settling oftentimes for minimum wage. So how do you make that work? You know, it's tough.
It is.
I see our students working hard, and you know, the pace that they keep up sometimes makes me really weary. I worry for them. They're stressed. They're tired.
That's exactly, like to share also with the panel. We're talking about kids working. I mean, the meaning of being a full-time student means that the students have to work an average of about 40 hours a week,
Absolutely.
right? So then we put an additional 10, 15, 20 hours of part-time employment. We're talking about 60 hours a week. Well, that can be a problem in terms of the stress. And on top of all of that, I'm going to say something here, all right? In addition to that, I think you know what's coming, right? There is this thing. So in addition to those 50 and 60 hours a week, now we're seeing folks often on a computer, right? Texting, right? Or going to Instagram or going to Twitter and Facebook and keep technically not working, but kind of you are, because cognitively, as you're using the computer, you actually work in your brain, so that actually adds to the stress level. So now, kids are, have to work technically 40 hours a week to be able to do well in school, number one. Second, kids actually have to go out and get maybe 1, maybe 2 part-time jobs, and then when they go home, I'm going to go to Instagram. I'm going to be keeping texting and,
But you and I both agree too that you're right. I mean, you can get on mobile overload, technology overload. But the other part of college life is hanging out, talking to your friends, going out for coffee, watching a movie. That should be part of the whole experience as well. You can't be working so hard that you can't enjoy and make friends. And that's part of your maturation process in college.
Right. Now, do you two find difficulties trying to meet up with friends and hang out on top of the already loaded workload, job load, and just extracurricular things that you're involved with?
I would have to say yes. Sometimes it is pretty difficult, just because almost all my classes are in the morning. So then I have all my classes, and then usually the afternoon I leave for work for like any time for works and stuff like that. So it is kind of struggle to like get lunch dates with friends and stuff, especially if it interferes with like my work time or my class time and stuff like that. So it is kind of sometimes stressful, but I feel like I do get it to work a lot of the time. So.
Yeah, no, for me, I work most mornings at one of my jobs, and then my classes are in the afternoon, and I work my other job some evenings, or I'll have to do clubs, organizations. So thankfully, a lot of my friends are in similar situations, so we kind of understand that
Right.
we might not be able to hang out all the time, but we do try and make time for each other, but it can be stressful trying to figure out a time where everybody can meet together instead of having like a few people here, a few people there, and trying to connect with everybody.
And when you guys went to college, did you find that looking to hang out with friends or meet up with people, was it as hard?
I was very fortunate. I went to a private. My parents were able to save money for me to go to school. So I didn't have to work a second job. I didn't have to work any jobs. They felt my job was going to school. And that might have been typical 20 plus years ago. I'm not going to give away too much of my age here. That might have been typical that many years ago, but it's not typical now. It was a different economic time in which parents would set aside college funds for their children. Many families, they're living paycheck to paycheck. There's nothing to put away for savings. So I had the luxury of being able, there was never any question that I would be done in 4 years, but that's what you did. At a private, you were programmed to go in and you had your major, and you didn't change your major, you just really kind of followed the program. So I had a lot of opportunity to be able to be with friends and enjoy my time in college.
Well, it's the same for me. I had a similar experience as Michelle had. I was actually fully funded by my parents, coming from a different country. And I had the opportunity to indeed have a conversation as being an international student at the time. Was pretty critical that I had the opportunity to talk with the American students to be able to become more Americanized, right? And indeed, my graduation, my parents were given the funding, so money wasn't a problem. I was also a full-time student.
Very fortunate.
That took me 3.5 years to graduate. But then now, kids are going out and have to work 2 jobs, and something's going to have to give. And I think it's the time of graduation.
Well, and I also think there's it's a different culture now. I went in programmed that I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I did change my mind a little bit, but I didn't change my major. I knew I wanted to just study English.
Right.
So I did that. I knew that I wanted to get a certain job, but there's so many more opportunities. There's so many more jobs. There are jobs today that didn't exist 5 and 10 years ago. Technology and social media, and there's so many new opportunities. I didn't even know what those jobs were when I went to school. So it's not unusual for a student to think they have an idea what they might like to major in or what they might like to do as a career. And then they come here, they're exposed to so many new opportunities, which is wonderful. That's our job.
Yeah.
But that might make you go, you know what, I don't think biology is for me. I want to go to comm media. And now you're going to take some extra time to graduate.
Yeah.
All right, with that in mind, with the new jobs and having to change, with us changing majors quite often, we're now dealing with a lot of different roadblocks that could prevent us from graduating in 4 years. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss further about some of those roadblocks.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Generation Gap. Our topic today is the graduation rate for 4-year degree in college. What we're going to talk about next is the roadblocks that lie ahead of many students that prevent them from graduating in 4 years. We talked about changing the major as well as some financial difficulties that could lead as roadblocks. Excuse me. What do you think are other big roadblocks that play a factor into many college students not graduating in those initial 4 years?
Well, definitely major changes. Especially me, like I changed my major so late, like it was last year. I decided like I wasn't enjoying as much as my other classmates in biology. Like they had a true passion for it, and I wasn't. And I can honestly say that I was in it for the wrong reasons. I was more in it for the money, like because the jobs offered more money and stuff like that, and I was doing it for enjoyment for myself. That would be happy. So I sat down with myself and like decided, you know, like, am I happy? Am I truly happy? And it was no. So I started looking around and stuff, and I found comm media, and I always thought like I always enjoyed like doing videos and like editing, and like I was in yearbook in high school, and I loved the editing pictures and stuff like that. So I was like, you know, I'll give it a shot, look at it, and talk to the dean. Had a like great chat with the dean, and decided to fully transfer into comm media.
All right, so how does that put you back as far as graduating in 4 years?
All my like liberal studies and stuff like that did transfer perfectly fine.
That's good.
But I mostly have to just take comm media classes, and that will take a while, since many of the classes are not offered at certain times, like fall or spring only specifically. So it'll take me a while, but I talked to the dean, and he said it should take me around another extra semester or two
So
after.
4.5, 5 years.
Yeah.
And you said you were double major. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, I have 2 majors and 2 minors, and I realized, because I started out in nutrition, was in it for a more clinical reason, quickly realized that's not what I wanted to do. With the work that I did on campus, with different jobs, I realized that I wanted to work with students and work with, in a helping capacity. So I started adding things instead of like dropping things. So I'd be taking 17, 18 credits every semester, just barely being able to graduate in 4 years.
No. Will you graduate in 4 years?
No, I was originally going to, but I was very sick last year and had to
Okay.
retake a class. It was only offered in the fall. So that's the reason that I was here for a little longer, because it would have worked out perfectly, but whenever emergencies pop up.
All right, so not only did you hit a roadblock as far as certain classes being offered at a different time, or certain times, which is something I think we can talk about later, you also had one of those problems that can't be avoided.
Right.
Just things happen. Which is interesting, saying you were double major and double minor.
Yes.
Actually, I think it is University of North Carolina. They have a program where in order for students to have a double major or even just a minor or multiple minors, that their students must graduate in 8 semesters, 4 years.
Wow.
So if you don't graduate in those 4 years, you don't have a minor, you don't have dual major. So it's kind of, it's pushing you to make sure that you graduate in 4 years, but is it healthy? Because then we're adding more stress and we're taking more time away from these students. What do you guys feel?
Well, one of the things that we see that sometimes slow up students is they might be in a course that they're just not doing well in. So, and that can be also because of the stress, because they are overloaded, because of their jobs, because of many things. So when they take advantage of the DF repeat, which is a great opportunity for them to adjust their grade point average, but it's also going to slow you down. So that also is a challenge. And if we find that sometimes advising, sometimes there's some miscommunication with an advisor, but oftentimes we do find students, they're just not as proactive as they should be to see a faculty advisor. So they might have thought they heard one particular thing about what they should do, but they just need to be I think students need to be more aggressive about going to their advisor and saying, this is exactly where I am, and I think I'm going to do well in this class, but I might have to drop this class. So if you have to drop a class, then you're behind again. So it's challenging when you have that situation.
Yeah, that's Michelle again makes a good point. I think that we should talk about maybe some of the macro solutions to these is to actually look at the classes themselves. So the structure of a syllabus that we have to have a syllabus
Right.
for our classes and everything, with the objectives and the assignments per week and the number of assignments per the semester. Well, in 1985, where funding was more available, and we had a different reality in the 90s even, maybe we need to look back again at how many assignments we actually put in our classes without losing that component
Right.
of robustness of the instruction. But if rather than, see for example, last year I had 16 assignments in script writing. one of our classes that you're going to take in communications media. And well, now I have actually about 14 assignments, still a lot of assignments, but I'm actually getting some of those assignments to be completed in class because I know that the kids have to be working part-time. So being a little more sensitive to the time that the students have to spend outside of the classroom, and I have found that it actually has helped some of the students to be able to complete the coursework with supervision of faculty to help to advance from their careers.
Interesting. But you know, we have to be so very careful, though. You don't want to make a course that is too easy or that students don't.
It's not easy.
But I think that's really. But I think
not
that's.
easy.
But no. I mean, I think that's a really good point. That adjust what the course needs to be for the students to be also successful in that course. Not dumbing it down, not making it easy, but
exactly
making
right.
it real and appropriately to their needs. That's a really good point.
Yeah, we have to make sure that the students have an opportunity to succeed, right? So if we set the class in a way that may lead the students to fail for other reasons, right?
What have you gained? Right.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we're here to help the students, to help you guys out to move forward with your career. So, I don't know, maybe just something like a larger discussion on how we can actually, I guess, recreate education, you know, and things like that.
All right. Well, before we finish this, and come up to trying to find a way to maybe start to solve this problem, kind of go down the panel one more time, and I want to hear your thoughts on maybe college becomes a 5-year program instead of a traditional 4-year program. What do you think about that?
I would have to say just maybe like a nice, good meeting with your advisor maybe, or just like to sit down to like your advisor look at you and say like, hey, do you really actually enjoy this? Or like, what's the reason for you selecting this major? Because honestly, my meetings with my advisor were like 5 minutes, here's your pin, these are the classes, go. And then like, so I think like a good meeting with your advisor, and just like also one of the things that helped me decide to switch my major and stuff was an ADVT course. And that's what got me to really think like, why am I doing this? So I feel like if we would have done that early on in my IUP career, it would have really helped me out to save time so like that I can graduate in 4 years and not have to stay an extra semester or 2.
Those are good. Well, I know that one of the things that we've talked a lot about how finances are an impediment for our students. So one of the things that we feel very responsible for is trying to get more scholarships, more aid for students that they don't have to have to be a debt. I mean, we want to get those financial aids, those scholarship programs for talented students, for students that really want to succeed. And that's one of the things that we've done through the Sun Scholars Program. We have a new program called the IUP Grant Program. But even little things like the new program for developmental math to help students succeed in developmental math. We've identified some of those coursework that's just really challenging for students and can put them behind. So we need to reach out. When you were talking, Dr. Amita, about making the courses fit the students, I think those are some of the things that we know we need to do. We want students to succeed. We're glad to have you here, but we don't want you here for any longer than you want to be here. But so we think those kind of new scholarships and fundraising and alumni support, some programs like the LX program with the developmental math, we're hoping that can help fill that bill.
Okay. We're quickly winding down to the last minute or so. So if we have 2 more people to hear from, and then we'll kind of touch base on those last key points of what could help.
Well, I mean, and also the opportunity for us to create centers here at IUP, like the Center for Media Production and Research in Comedia that we have here in our department. It allows students to work in professional contracts where we have the opportunity to potentially get some funds to help students with alleviate some of that gap in the finances.
I know for me, I've been a big component since I've been in college of students coming in undecided and taking those advising and testing, career exploration courses in the very beginning to kind of see their options before they get too far into a major and realize that they need to change. So I think like being able to start out taking general courses, figuring out some areas of study and then narrowing it down later might help students not backtrack so much.
Okay. So we can all agree that more financial support, making sure that we are in communication with our advisor and know where we stand, and making sure that we don't rush into a major and end up taking extra load of classes that we don't need. Anything else we want to add before we end?
Be easy on technology.
Well, I think just know where you need to be. Reach out to your professors if you're in trouble with a class. Professors are here to help you, and they want to help you.
All right, well, thank you all for coming
Thank
in
you.
today.
Thank
you.
It was a pleasure
Thank
having
you.
you.
Absolutely.
And thank everybody who tuned in today. I hope that you continue to watch. Have a good one.
Thank
All
you.
right, so that went well.
That
don't
was
you think?
wonderful.
I thought so.
Yeah,
That was
that's really
wonderful.
cool.
Cool. And thank you guys for coming in.
Oh my
No
goodness, you're
problem.
welcome. But we do hope that we